I'm in the back of the law library of Santa Clara County, California. A library that's open to the public. They can use this library to find answers to their legal problems, questions. This, about 35 years ago, I was at work and a sheriff's deputy came in and they took me out, took me away, took me downtown because I was behind in child support. I was waiting in a judge's waiting room for hours, and then finally it was late in the day and people were leaving, so I got worried that I was just going to sit there all night. I knocked on the judge's door and told him who I was, that everyone was leaving, and I was worried. He said, "Oh, they've lost your paperwork, so come on in." And I walked in and he started talking to me like I was dirt, like I was scum. And he said, "You're behind in child support. What are you going to do about it?" I said, "Well, I'm sending her all I could send her. If you could tell me how much I'm behind, I'll tell you what I can do about it." He sent someone to the computer room to get the printout of my account. And he's reading it, and he looked at me with a different tone. And he said, "Does her family have money?" I said, "Yes, there's plenty of money." He said, "Do they have power? I mean, like political power?" I said, "Yes, they're in politics." "How did you know?" He said, "Because you're $10 behind." I said, "That bitch." He said, hey, watch your language. Can't be having that." I said, okay, Your Honor, I'm sorry. It just kind of surprised me. He said, "Well, you're technically behind, so you do have to show up for court. Now, see you then." Although it wouldn't be the same judge, it would be a different judge. And it was about a month or so away. So during that month, I went in and watched about 3 different days of court sessions with child support issues. And I never saw any man ever come out of there that wasn't just devastated, with or without an attorney. Now, sometimes the clients went in with their attorney, went into the judge's chamber and made some sort of deal, but we didn't know what that deal was, those of us in the room watching. Well, I went to the law libraries, began studying. I took a friend with me and rolls of dimes for photocopying. I was able to borrow some books, copy by hand out of books, photocopy pages, and I worked hard. In the 3 days that I was watching the other cases, the judge was bored, and he would sit there with a pencil in his temple and just almost looking out the window. It was predetermined. Nothing that any of the men said made any difference. Nothing that their attorneys said made any difference. Well, my day finally arrived. I showed up with my law books. I showed up with my photocopies of materials and my case. But the first thing I had done was I made sure that I was current in my payments, my child support payments. And because I was only $10 behind, that wasn't a very hard task. Of course, those numbers would be very, very different nowadays, much, much higher. So the prosecutor starts trying to prosecute, but there's nothing to prosecute because I haven't violated any law because I'm current. So he's defeated. He's done. Then the judge takes over the prosecutor's role and he starts prosecuting me. He's asking me questions and I have answers for him. He's looking at my financial statements and he says, "It says here that you're spending $175 more a month than you're taking in." Where are you getting the rest of it? Stealing it? I said, no, Your Honor. And he said, if I ordered you to go get a better job so that you could afford to make these payments, you'd have to do that, right? I said, no, Your Honor. This is a civil case, and because it's a civil case, my rights are diminished, and the powers of the court are enhanced. And the court must act cautiously with dealing with me because it's so easy to violate my rights. He says, let's see this, because I'm reading from my notes. He kept asking more and more questions, and he was angry. He was red in the face. He wasn't sitting there with a pencil in his temple looking out the window anymore. He was looking straight at me, and he was mad. Almost wanted to call me names or swear at me. And this is the way it went. All through it. And I kept answering. And I kept defeating the judge's prosecution of me. Although I wasn't violating any law. He was threatening me. But I left the courtroom with the court ordering me to pay her $0. I had never seen that before. I actually had my bags packed and gas in the car in case something went terribly wrong, because they were threatening me with jail. When I left, they ordered me to pay her $0. I didn't realize what I had accomplished. I didn't understand the full impact of what I've just done. But about 6 weeks later, I got a phone call from her. And she said, how the hell did you do that? Well, it was from study in a law library just like this. The law library is filled with laws against men, but it also has laws in favor of men, to protect their rights. I had called several attorneys, but they all told me the case was lost. There was nothing I could do. Why couldn't they find those laws for me? Why was it when I was trying to hire a law firm to represent me, they were already defeated? What we need are some lawyers to stand up for men. It's not that all the laws of this country are bad. There's a more sinister problem. It's the legal system and the way it acts. There are laws to protect men, protect families, protect children. It's just not being used. And they get very mad when you use them. Now, I'd like to hear from law firms out there, from attorneys out there. Would you stand up and fight for us? Would you fight to change the system so it's more equitable, so that families can function and people can live? There isn't the hatred? Are there any law firms out there like that? Are there any attorneys out there like that? That's what's wrong. Not so much the laws, but how our court system's working.